Get my 6. Still looking. So, I wasn't going to make a video today, but just kidding. Of course I was going to make a video today. I make a video like every day. I just did that because I guess that's a new trigger for these vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges. I'm sorry, there's gnats everywhere. So if I'm doing this, don't get triggered. Okay, wasn't going to make a video today, but I guess that's a trigger almost as much as, wait for it. Oh! So, have any of y'all ever been to Meridian, Mississippi? I got a story for you that took place in Meridian, Mississippi. Eee, I stepped in a big old gob of, eee. Look at that. You know what that is? That's pine sap. Trust me, because I saw it like just before I hit record. I was like, I thought it was something else too, brah. I wouldn't do that if I didn't know what it was. It's pine sap, a big old gooky, or is it some sort of plasma? You know what? It's not sticky like pine sap. What the? Kind of stuff ghosts leave behind. That's what I just stepped in, a big old goopy pile of it. It's very fitting because today's video that I wasn't going to make. You know, it's funny. Once or twice a week, you can just go through the comment section. You know, when I wake up and I do my vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges purge, going through and get the you can just watch through the comment section somebody as they are getting intoxicated or using or whatever their thing of choice is, because the earlier comments are somewhere way down on the list. So you come to this comment and they're like blasting you, telling you how much they hate you. They can't believe they spent all this time watching you because they thought this stuff was real. I was like, whoa, whatever, pray for them. Dear God, please bring this individual the same health, wealth, and prosperity that you have so bestowed upon this household, and we mean that. And then we summarily ban them. But you go back, and once you see that, you just keep banning. But it's so funny because you get back to their first few comments, and it's like, OMG, I'm so glad I found this channel. I saw that thing. I know they're real, and you are so wise. Well, this was like the comment they left like 8 videos in 4 hours before, when they first maybe cracked open that first one. And this is fitting because this story that took place in Meridian, Mississippi is about a bunch of drunk rednecks that I thought was going to run me out of a campground on a rail. Turns out it was something else. These gnats about ready to run me out of this campground on a rail, and I own this one. All right, oh, my neck. If I seem, okay, people are like, are you on drugs? No. Are you drunk? No. You need to, it's something about, hey, no meds. It's called high on life, brah. It's called being who you are and not giving a crap about how other people take it. Don't hurt them and don't hurt yourself, but don't try to be a square peg fitting into a round hole, brah, because I did that for years and I just stopped doing it. So that's what I'm on. I'm on me. But I did just get a full body 1 hour massage, and I feel great. And no, get your mind out of the gutter, nothing like that. Listen, I am an avid advocate of massage, and I have been for about 10 years. When I began living in the Philippines many years ago, one of the things that just used to, I'll be honest with you, one of the things that used to frustrate me in my American mindset was how so many of the people over there had nothing, but they were so content. Their hearts were filled with joy. They were happy. And my best friend there for many years was an older gentleman named Ray from England. He was an Englishman. And I used to just, and he'd been there a few years by the time I got there, and he's still over there. I was like, I don't get it. These people have nothing, and they're just joyful. Their lives are filled with joy. They're happy. They're content. Over in America, we have everything, and we just stay pissed off. We're angry, And he said, Kevin, there's something else, because there's something in America that you have, and we have in England to a degree that they don't have over here. And I was like, what's that? And he said, stress. I'm like, well, yeah, because we work, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he goes, and how much of it is really necessary? I mean, once you have acquired food, clothing, shelter, and a few man toys, like your zero-turn mower, your badass Husqvarna 455 Rancher chainsaw, nice wood splitter that, just comes to you. How much more do you really need? And it's like, so many of us over here just don't get that. Well, I get that now after having seen the other side. But he also said massage therapy in Eastern culture, it is commonplace. It's just something people do every 5 to 7 days without question. And that became a part of my lifestyle. Now, my beautiful bride, Dearly, AKA Giggly Girl, and myself, she massages me for an hour once a week. I massage her for an hour once a week. So we don't have to go pay for it. Another benefit to it, like in the Philippines, 1 hour full body massage is like $10 US, or 8. Of course, here in the US, it's 60, here in Charlottesville at least. So that's a big impediment for a lot of people not getting it because of the price. No. I want to say this. I had a conversation with a guy at the Outer Banks there last week. I mentioned him, Jonathan, and we were talking about what it's like being married to your best friend. And I want to point this out. My beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, gives me a massage. We'll talk to our friends about that. And like our American friends, American couples, the guys are like, what? And of course their wives are like, I ain't touching you for an hour. It's really sickening. Most of our friends are not like that, but we have some that are. And then, so this word submissive comes up, I've got to get me one of them submissive. And I'm going to stop right there because we're on social media. Let me tell you something. You go piss Dearly off and you see how submissive she is. And so Jonathan, this guy I met, he's married to his best friend. He's an American. His wife's an American. It's not an issue of submissiveness. It's an issue of, I love you, you love me, we don't have me, no, not that Barney crap. It's about mutual respect. And here's one of the cultural differences that I struggle with Dearly and myself, our relationship when we first got together. Now, I've been making my own coffee for the last month because she's in the Philippines visiting family, her and our son. Okay, we've been together 11 years. For like most of that time, like let's say she's here, like 10 years, I haven't made my own coffee. No matter how early I get up in the mornings, she hears that bed creak. She gets up and makes my coffee. And so, hey, let's throw in that word again, submissive, right? No, she loves me and she wants to treat me. And so that first year I was like, honey, you got to stop doing this because I'm way more of a morning person than she is. I get up at 5 a.m. no matter how late I'm up. If I'm up till midnight or 1 a.m. for some stupid reason, I'm up at 5 the next morning. I just really enjoy that longer afternoon nap the next day, I was telling Jonathan, because she wasn't going to change. And I said, you know what? I will compromise. So guess what? In the last 10 years of our 11-year relationship or whatever, Dearly, my wife, she hasn't had to make her own coffee either. Because I realized, she's not doing this for me because she's submissive. By no means. She's doing this for me because she loves me and she wants to treat me with respect and dignity. So instead of trying to get her to change, I said, well, how about maybe I'm the one that should maybe do something a little bit different. This girl is going to make my coffee forever and a day. So why don't I just start making hers? And that's how we roll now. I'll be upstairs in my office, writing. I've been up for, a couple hours, got my caffeine high going on there, my adrenaline, and I'm really in the zone and I'm busting out some scenes. And I hear her get up. I hear the floorboards in this 120-year-old, house we're living in start creaking and cracking. I stop mid-sentence wherever I am, and I go downstairs, and I, by God, make her coffee. And let me tell you, brah, there's nothing submissive about me. It's called love. It's called mutual respect. Instead of bitching and complaining about what your partner's not doing for you, why don't you get out there and try doing just a little bit more for them, huh? All right. Speaking of writing, I've got a story about a bunch of drunk rednecks in Meridian, Mississippi for you. I promise. And why do you talk about a million things that aren't related, you crazy nut? Hey, it is related, because this story came to me when this Thai lady, whose hands are stronger than my 25-ton log splitter down here, was doing something to my neck. Something like popped, and this tightness and pain that had been running down the right side of my spine just disappeared, and this freaking story, bam, just right there in my head, brah. So it is relevant. And it's like, how could I have forgotten about that? And how could I have made over 1,300 videos for YouTube so far and have never told the story about the ghost of Laughing Willie? Yeah, you're like, there you go again, changing topics again. I thought this was about a bunch of drunk rednecks at a campground in Meridian, Mississippi. It is. Kinda, sorta. We got a big old thunderstorm coming. The guy's mowing over here. Just ignore his mower. I don't blame him for not stopping, because we're going to have a cloud burst. All right, so. All right, where was I? All right, so maybe in the year 2007 it was. So it's been 14 years ago. I took a round country trip in my truck. I had an old truck, and I spent 28 days driving around the outer perimeter of the United States of America. It was great. I would sometimes I would camp at campgrounds. Got out west and started running out of money, counting up my money, so I started staying in the back of Walmart parking lots, and I'd sleep in the back of my truck because it had a topper on it. So anyway, I wrote a book about that, and writing, that's what I left out. This freaking book I'm working on. Well, the book I wrote about that, I've unpublished it because it was crap. It was poorly written, and I kind of threw some ideas out there, some belief systems that over the course of the next several years I would find were just not so true. So it's been unpublished. If you have a copy of that book, you're holding what may be a collector's item someday. After this next book that I'm working on now changes the world. Listen, I'm not going to tell you about how it's going to put man on Mars. We've been beating that dead horse to death. And I'm not even going to talk about how it's going to lay out the roadmap on how to end world poverty. We've discussed that. But you know what somebody said this book is going to do? This is what people are saying about this book that they haven't read yet because I haven't finished it. Yesterday, hey, do you think I went to get that finally? Because, my wife hasn't been here to give me a massage for a month. Do you think I went down to get that massage because I was splitting wood and weed eating and stacking? All that too, brah. But I was sitting in my chair yesterday for 5 hours writing this new book. I am consumed with it right now. I had to go back from the beginning and start rewriting it, even though it was literally almost 20,000 words written. A novel's 40,000 words, almost to 20,000 words, and I had to go back and start again at the beginning. Because the main character is an individual that I was portraying as a bad guy because he's done a lot of bad things, and I'm just, people are going to hate this guy. Wow. Remember when you saw that doe have that baby fawn up here a couple weeks ago just before I went to the beach? I just saw her and that little fawn run across the field way down there. You wouldn't have been able to see it if I would have turned this in time. Yeah, brah, they've called me manic. But they just ran across the field, so everybody wanted an update on how they're doing. Well, they're doing fine and well. They're running across that field, heading directly to my fruit orchard. Sons of gunses. All right, so, listen. Had to go back and do the whole rewrite, and it's coming out better anyway. This guy has antisocial personality disorder, what they used to call sociopath. He was a sociopath, what they would have called him back then. And I was just portraying him in a bad light. Look, this guy's a D-bag, and he does all these bad things. That's not right, because I've actually been studying up on this condition, and what I've found is he's a person. I mean, it's a fictional character. Don't get me wrong. It's a fictional character. But this fictional character is tightly based on real people, more than one, you know, because I've come across several sociopaths in my life, or people that a decade ago we would call sociopaths. And so it's kind of like a collection and a mixture. It's really making for a good story. But my research has led me to the understanding that people that have this condition, they're not bad people. There are people that have a condition that if gone untreated, if they're not getting therapy, if they're not getting help for this antisocial personality disorder, it causes them to do some bad things. Kind of like an alcoholic or a drug addict who's not, you know, trying to seek sobriety or get clean. They're out there active in their addiction. The only thing that matters is that next drink or that next drug. Well, people with other isms, if they're not getting therapy, not being treated, they're doing some bad things as a result of the untreated condition. And it's a but it's worked out great, because here's why. The way this book was originally being written, it's like, you're just like, wow, this guy's an a-hole. I mean, from page one, this guy's a D-bag. Who wants to read a full-length novel about somebody they don't like? So now it's coming across as, this guy's all right. He's a little bit weird. Some of the things he thinks is, why would he say that to someone? Or why would he do that? But for some reason, he's not a bad guy. He's a likable guy. It's just, man, I'm glad I'm not crossing paths with him, because he'd probably do this crap to me too. And that really is a more realistic view of somebody who has an antisocial personality disorder. All right, on to the story. Yeah, you better keep watching back here. You never know who may or may not show up at any given moment. All right, so during that trip, 28 days around the United States, you know, and I came back, went straight to basic training, airborne school. Shortly after that, straight to Iraq. So, Meridian, Mississippi. I was hesitant to advance past this point because I started down here in Charlottesville. It's because this is where the Lewis and Clark expedition started. Meriwether Lewis was from Charlottesville. Actually, we have good friends a couple different friends whose houses are in subdivisions that once upon a time was Meriwether Lewis's family's farm. Yeah, and it's really neat. It's really neat. It's like living history just being here in Charlottesville. And but on the way back from the Pacific Northwest, I actually traced the trail they took on the way back to Charlottesville. So it was really neat. So it's super hot and my body's still covered with massage oil, so I'm not able to sweat. I got to go take a hot shower after this. But I viewed the Mississippi River as the gateway to the West, which it is. And right there in St. Louis, you know, where they have the arch, and I've been up in that a couple times, really neat thing. I was kind of hesitant because I'd never ventured out on a trip like this, a loop around the entire United States in a truck that was almost as old as me. So I got to Meridian, Mississippi. The next day I would cross the Mississippi and go past what I was considering the point of no return. So I was nervous. I was like, so I spent the first night there. Something very odd happened that first night, and I'm going to tell you about it. And then the second night, I spent the second night there. And that second night there, and I thought these things were connected. There was a bunch of drunk rednecks. They worked for like a home builder, roofers or something. And they were on location. They were doing a job here close to Meridian. So they were staying at a campground, because this campground, it had showers and everything. It was like $12 a night or $15 a night, and they had like shower house with a bathroom and stuff. Well, these guys got drunk. They were kind of rowdy. They were kind of loud until about midnight or 1. But what really sucked was the next morning at like 6 a.m. they were heading out, probably still drunk from the night before, I'm sure, to start their roofing job or whatever the hell it was they were doing. And they were laying on their truck horns and screaming out the windows saying, "Wake up, everybody, it's time to wake up." Like 6 a.m. And in the campground, it's like there's campers, you know, it wasn't packed because it was like middle of the week, but there was enough people. They woke me up, pissed me off, right? So I thought, well, time to get a move on, time to cross that Mississippi River, point of no return, and see this great nation getting ready to go you know, over somewhere else to, you know. So I go to check out with the people that own the place. It's this, I called her an old woman and an old man because, mind you, I was in my early 30s or something, mid 30s. They were like my age, you know, 50-ish. And I still was kind of hesitant about passing that point of no return, but I didn't want to stay there with them drunk rednecks again another night. And so I told the woman that. I said, you know, I'd stay another night, but for the last 2 nights, these drunk rednecks have been partying, and, you know, and then when they left this morning, they were screaming, and I'm just not staying another night with them here. And she goes, well, listen, they're not coming back. They were here just for 1 night. So you don't have to worry about them. And she said, number 2, the night before that, they weren't even here. I was like, well, I heard some yipping and yapping and cackling and heckling and all this stuff. And I actually went out to confront them because it was so bad. It was the strangest thing. It was an odd voice. It was like manly voice, like deep in nature, but then it would start cackling and heckling and laughing at a very high pitch, not quite like a female, but like a drunken redneck. It's the only way I can think of to put it. And she looked at me and she said, you heard that the night before last? And I said, yeah, and I went out there to say something because, man, I was tired. I've been driving like all day for the last 5 days. And I said, but I couldn't find anybody. She said, well, where'd you go? I said, well, I went in the direction of the cackling and the heckling and the laughing, and it went down this trail over this stream that flowed into a bigger river. I wouldn't even call this a river. It's a creek, a big creek, maybe 25 feet wide, and there was a bridge, but there seemed to be a pretty big hole below that creek that might have had 6 or 8 feet of water in it. I said, right there, when I got to the bridge, it's like I heard this one last hellacious laugh and cackle, and then it just stopped. It just ceased. And I looked around, and I was like, these guys might be laying and trying to ambush me. And so I went back to my tent. I never heard them again the rest of that night. But then that next night, they were at it again, and then honking on the horns the next morning. And she said, sir, I'm telling you, those guys were not here that first night you were here. You were the only one here because it was a Sunday night is what it was. All the weekend campers left, and then people start trickling in again as you get further into the week. And so that first night was just me. That second night was me, the drunk rednecks, and a few other camp spots were taken. And I said, well, who in the heck was out there laughing and cackling like that? And it sounded like more than one. She said, sir, you ain't going to believe this. Because mind you, this is Meridian, Mississippi, so that's how they talk. You ain't going to believe this. You heard the ghost of Cackling Willie, or Laughing Willie, something like that. Willie somebody. Okay, so I was like, what in the world, or who in the world is this Willie guy? And she told me this story about how it happened 100 years ago. There used to be it was a very small community. It's a small community now, but it was even smaller a century before. There was a church over on the other side of that stream where that bridge was. And there was maybe a dozen houses in that small community. And there was this, I'm looking, there's trucks down there in front of my house. Oh, power company going over on the other side. Turns out there was this kid, he was 13, okay? Part of the community who had, he had some issues, behavioral issues, and he just liked to play pranks on everybody. That's all this kid did was play pranks. They said one of his favorites is he'd carry 2 boards, not well-seasoned red oak, but 2 actual boards, and he'd come up behind me, slap them together, which makes, loud sound like a gunshot. And he was just always pranking everybody. And people would just laugh because they knew, he had some issues or whatever, and nobody took it too seriously. But this one day, there were these 3 guys, a little older, 16, 17-year-old, bullyish type guys. They decided they was going to prank old Willie. Hey, I know there's gnats all around me, and I've been seeing them fly in front of the camera, but that wasn't a gnat. And I'm telling you, this is not pine sap, and it's not bubble gum. I was going to throw it over there, but I just step in it again later. Potentially, it might be pine sap. Potentially, okay? So anyway, old Willie was out in the woods, and he was doing whatever, and he was coming home just before dark one day, and he had to cross that bridge. Well, these three guys, they get up and they push him in the water down into that hole down there about 6 or 8 feet. You know, they were ambushing the kid, lying in wait. What they didn't realize, or maybe what they didn't even care about, was the fact that Willie couldn't swim. And he was down there splashing around and screaming for help and looking like trying to do his best doggy paddle. And they just thought he was pranking them, thought he was joking. So they laughed and they laughed, and he'd go underwater. And each time he'd go under, it'd take him a little longer to come up. By the time they realized what was going on and that Willie couldn't swim, it was too late. They went after him, but he was gone. He was done. Willie was no longer among the living. Now, that woman told me that over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, all 3 of those guys died. And the way they died is they drowned. One fell into that very hole while he was fishing, and though he was known to be a strong swimmer, he drowned. It was as if something grabbed him, took him under, wouldn't let him up, and he drowned. Another got drunk on some good old-fashioned southern U.S. moonshine, passed out drunk in the bathtub and drowned in the bathtub. The third, while out at a campfire, drinking some of that good old-fashioned southern U.S. moonshine and chasing it with water, actually got choked on that chaser and drowned in half a glass of water. And then they said, local legend has been that there are times you can go across that bridge at night. You can be out there, maybe the lone member, the lone camper on that campground close to that bridge, and you'll hear the laughing and the cackling. And she attributed it sounding like multiple people to the fact that he was right at that age where his voice was changing. You know, so he had that deeper, manly type voice. But, you know, you go through puberty when you're a guy, your voice will crack. He can still kind of hit some of the high notes, sometimes accidentally and at the most embarrassing moments. So that cackle she described was that of Laughing Willie. I told her I didn't believe that story. It was all poppycock. She told me if I stayed one more night, I could stay for free. And she would go out to that bridge with me and see if we could hear old Laughing Willie. I was still hesitant to go past that point of no return and cross the Mississippi, so I took her up on that offer, stayed another night. She come over, sitting at the tent with me. We're just sitting there small talking, and we hear the cackling and the laughing. And so we go over to the bridge. The laughing and cackling is getting louder and louder as we're getting closer and closer to it. It had just turned too dark to see, but there on the bridge stood somebody, right? And just as we're about to get on the bridge, that somebody or something jumped into that water, and we heard a splash down there in that deep hole, and the laughing and the cackling stopped. And I waited. I said, I know what's going on here. This is your husband. So I'm watching, I'm looking. I never saw anyone or anything come back up out of that water. I never heard walking downstream, somebody or something walking through the water. It was just gone. So we start going back to the camp, and I'm telling her, ha, 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 nice trick, nice prank. You and your husband, the way you're going to laugh about this with the locals for the next 10 years. And she said, that's Willie. That was Willie. We got back to my tent. I said, that was your husband. She goes, well, let's go check the office. We go in the office. Her husband's sitting in the office reading these old-timey dinosaur type things called newspapers. I don't even think they make them anymore. Clothes, dry as a bone. And it's like he was sitting there where he had been sitting before we went out there. Hadn't moved. Flipping the page and the next page of the paper. I wasn't going to make a video today. Hope you liked it.